Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping right into a classic tech debate, the old guard DSLR versus the new kid, the mirrorless camera. Yeah, and we're doing it using some great notes shared by listener Ang. It's part 169 of their photography project notes, dated just recently, November 8th, 2024. Ang is wrestling with a year-end purchase decision.
Right, and what Eng lays out so well isn't just specs versus specs. It's about the technology, what mirrorless can do versus the reality of the market. All those used DSLRs out there, and budget, of course.
Exactly. So the big question we're exploring today is, do you grab a secondhand DSLR, maybe save a bundle because the market's full of them, or do you shell out significantly more for a new mirrorless? It really starts with this fundamental point Ang makes.
And this is probably the most crucial rule, honestly. When you buy a camera,
Yeah.
you're not just getting that one box, the camera body. No, you are buying into an ecosystem.
An ecosystem, right? So bodies, lenses, accessories,
Yeah.
the whole package.
The whole shebang. Lenses are the big one, but flashes, filters, batteries, even software workflow sometimes. And that system, that's the real long-term investment, much more than just the camera itself.
And the timing here makes it really sharp. Ang notes that there are serious discounts around, especially affordable stuff, particularly towards the end of the year.
Yeah, that year-end push. Retailers clearing stock, people upgrading.
Which
Which means a flood of secondhand DSLRs hitting the market. That's the
Right.
saturation we mentioned. It makes these older but still very capable DSLRs a really tempting option, purely based on price and just, well, how many are available.
So we're talking good cameras, right? Not just junk.
Oh, absolutely. Think about things like the Canon 5D Mark III, maybe a Nikon D810, cameras that were pro level just a few years back, thousands of dollars then.
Yeah.
Still fantastic tools, just maybe without the absolute latest autofocus tricks. And because those bodies are cheap now, the lenses that fit them. Also cheaper, used lenses for those older DSLR mounts are everywhere. So the DSLR path isn't just saving on the body, it's a discount on the whole entry ticket to that established system.
That's a huge point. You might save, what, $1,500 on the body?
Easily. Sometimes more.
But then you find a great used macro lens for maybe $600 instead of like $1,200 for the new mirrorless version. That adds up fast.
It really does. The total system cost looks very different.
But okay, before we get lost in savings, we need to talk about why Ang wants a dedicated camera in the first place. What's the mission here?
Right. It's not just for snapshots. Ang has two very specific and actually quite different jobs for this camera.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is serious macro photography. Specifically, Ang wants to document their gardening work in intense detail.
Gardening, so like close-ups of flowers, bugs.
Exactly. Petal textures, tiny insects, tracking growth stages. Really precise, detailed stuff. Clinical precision, as Ang puts it.
Wow, okay. That sounds demanding.
It is. You need stability. Pinpoint focus control, often dealing with tricky lighting. It requires real control. High-precision manual focus is often key. It's not a casual point-and-shoot situation at all.
Okay, demanding macro. What's the second purpose?
And the second one is almost the opposite. It needs to be a lightweight, easy-to-carry camera for street photography during city walks.
Ah, so portability is key there. Speed being unobtrusive.
Totally. Something you can carry for hours without it becoming a burden, quick to react, doesn't scream, "Look at my giant camera."
So we've got these two competing needs, super detailed, probably tripod-based macro work,
Which often means heavier gear, traditionally.
and then lightweight grab-and-go street shooting.
Yep. Those two needs, the documentation detail and the portability, they're the real filters for this whole decision. Ang can't just buy any old cheap DSLR. It has to potentially serve both masters.
And this is where the money problem really bites. Ang says the expensive option, the new mirrorless camera, would actually be adequate for both needs right out of the box. Like, technically, it's the perfect fit.
It is the perfect technical solution, yeah. And maybe we should spend a second on why that is. Why is mirrorless potentially handle both jobs better?
Good idea. Let's unpack that. Why is mirrorless better for that really precise macro work Ang needs, even if an old DSLR has a decent sensor?
Okay, main thing. The viewfinder and focus. With the DSLR, you look through an optical viewfinder light bouncing off a mirror. With mirrorless, you're looking at an electronic viewfinder, an EVF. It shows you exactly what the sensor sees.
Ah, like a direct feed.
Exactly. And for macro, where focus is razor thin, features like focus peaking, where the sharp edges light up on screen, or being able to digitally zoom in the viewfinder to check focus, Those are game changers.
Stuff you just can't do looking through an optical finder.
Right. Plus, older DSLR autofocus systems, the phase detect ones, can sometimes struggle with really close subjects. Mirrorless uses focus points right on the sensor, generally more precise for this, and many have computational tricks like built-in focus stacking for more depth of field and macro. Saves a ton of editing time later.
Okay, so mirrorless makes the tricky macro stuff easier, less friction. What about the street photography side, the portability?
Well, that's down to the core design difference. No mirror box. Removing that whole mirror assembly, the mechanism to flip it up and down constantly. It just makes the camera bodies inherently smaller and lighter.
Less bulk, less weight. Makes sense.
Yeah, for carrying it around all day. Huge difference. Less fatigue, easier to whip out quickly, and you're less conspicuous. Plus, modern mirrorless autofocus is often better at tracking moving subjects, great for street candids. And they can shoot silently, no mirror slap sound. Big deal for being discreet.
Okay, that technical dive really highlights Aang's problem. Mirrorless seems like the clear winner, technically speaking, for both specific needs.
It does.
But then there's the elephant in the room. Aang calls it the significantly higher cost.
That's the rub. The cost is the great equalizer here. Aang isn't guessing. They've been shooting for years. They know what they want, what they can do. This isn't about skill or preference anymore.
It's purely financial and about the ecosystem, like you said.
Exactly. Aang literally asks if a suitable ecosystem exists within their wallet size. It's purely budget versus the ideal tool.
So let's think about that real cost, not just the sticker price on the body. If Aang bites the bullet, buys the pricey mirrorless now, they get the tech, the future-proofing, it solves both problems immediately.
But let's look at the total cost of ownership, the TCO. Say the mirrorless body is $1,500 more than a comparable used DSLR body. Okay.
Seems like a big difference.
But wait, what about the lenses Aang needs? Let's say the essential macro lens and a decent street lens cost $1,500 combined used for the DSLR mount.
Okay.
Now, for the mirrorless system, maybe the newer, lighter, perhaps optically even better equivalents cost $2,000 new.
Right.
Suddenly, that $1,500 body difference shrinks to maybe only a $1,000 difference for the whole working system Aang requires.
Right.
Or maybe even less, maybe $500 depending on the specific lenses.
Okay. I see where you're going.
So now the question is paying that extra $500 or $1,000, whatever it works out to be, worth getting the next-gen features, the better portability, the workflow helpers like focus peaking, and knowing you're on the current lens mount system for the future?
That reframes it completely. It's not just $1,500 saved on the body anymore.
Exactly. Is that difference worth eliminating potentially years of workflow friction and carrying a slightly heavier bag? That's the real financial calculation Aang is making.
That makes sense. So Aang weighed these options. Pay up for the mirrorless now, or wait.
Or wait. And waiting basically means acknowledging the budget is the main roadblock right now. Waiting could mean hoping for a price drop on that mirrorless camera, or maybe waiting for that perfect storm on the used market, the exact macro lens they need, plus a suitable DSLR body popping up cheap.
It's a gamble on timing then.
It is. And for you, the listener, this whole situation is such a perfect example of how tech purchases work.
Yeah.
Right? Even for someone experienced like Aang, it often just boils down to budget now versus getting the latest tech now. Waiting is hoping the market shifts in your favor or the tech price falls to meet your budget.
It's that classic tension, what you want, what the tech can do, and what you can actually afford. It makes you wonder, though, if Aang's been shooting for years, why this dilemma now? Maybe they were waiting for the tech to mature.
No, maybe. Maybe the need wasn't quite so specific before. That gardening documentation requirement that's new, it sounds like, that's the catalyst.
The trigger.
Yeah. Without that really demanding macro need, maybe the phone was fine for street shots or an older camera sufficed. But wanting that pro-level garden detail, that forces the issue. It demands dedicated gear and makes you face that ecosystem cost head-on.
Okay, let's wrap this up. Key takeaways from Aang's struggle. First, it's all about the total ecosystem cost, the TCO, not just the body price.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Second, yeah, you can save big initially with used DSLRs because the market's flooded, but you have to weigh those savings against the real workflow benefits and future viability of the newer mirrorless tech.
And third, it gets really complex when you have specific, almost conflicting needs, like Aang does the intense macro versus the lightweight street shooting.
Right. The better tech, the mirrorless, solves both problems more elegantly, which justifies its higher cost. But the sheer cheapness of the DSLR option makes it too compelling to just ignore. It forces this whole calculation.
Which leads to a final thought for you, listening. Think about how often something quite personal, maybe even seems a bit mundane, like Aang wanting to document their garden. How often that becomes the unexpected driver for needing serious, dedicated, maybe even professional level tech.
Hmm. What's the seemingly small, specific factor in your life that pushes you towards a major purchase decision? And how often does that force you into this same kind of balancing act between budget and getting the perfect tool? Something to think about.